Okay, thank you so much everyone for joining our daily Srimad Bhagavatam class. Today we will be discussing verses from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 7, verses 28 and 29. So with that, we will start with reading the verses. Okay, so 4, 7, 28. Sadasya uchuhu Asharana uruklesha durgentakogra Vyalanvishte vishaya mrigatrishi atmagehorubharaha Dvandva swabhre kala mrigabhaye shokadave agnisartha Padokaste sharanada Gadayati kamopashritah. Synonyms and translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sadasya, the members of the assembly, Uchuhu, said, Utpati, repeated birth and death, Advani, on the path of, Asharane, not having a place to take shelter, Uru, great, Klesha, troublesome, Durge, in the formidable fort, Antaka, termination, Ugra, ferocious, Vyala, snakes, Anvishte, being infested with, Vishaya, material happiness, Mriga Trishi, mirage, Atma, body, Geha, home, Uru, heavy, Bharaha, burden, Dvandva, dual, Shvabhre, holes, ditches of so-called happiness and distress, Kala, ferocious, Mriga, animals, Bhaye, being afraid of, Shokadave, the forest fire of lamentation, Agnisartaha, for the interest of the rascals, Pada Okaha, shelter of your lotus feet, Te, unto you, Sharanada, giving shelter, Gada, when, Yati, went, Kama Upashrishtaha, being afflicted by all sorts of desires. So, translation. The members of the assembly addressed the Lord, O exclusive shelter for all who are situated in troubled life. In this formidable fort of conditional existence, the time element, like a snake, is always looking for an opportunity to strike. This world is full of ditches of so-called distress and happiness, and there are many ferocious animals always ready to attack. The fire of lamentation is always blazing, and the mirage of the false happiness is always alluring, but one has no shelter from them. Thus, foolish persons live in the cycle of birth and death, always overburdened in discharging their so-called duties. And we do not know when they will accept the shelter of your lotus feet. Purport. Persons who are not in Krishna consciousness are living a very precarious life, as described in this verse. But all these circumstantial conditions are due to forgetfulness of Krishna. The Krishna consciousness movement is meant to give relief to all these bewildered and distressed persons. Therefore, it is the greatest relief work for all human society, and the workers thereof are the greatest well-wishers, for they follow in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya, who is the greatest friend to all living entities. Then our next verse, verse 29. Rudra Uvacha Tava Varada Varan Krab Ashishe Hakilarthe Hyapi Muni Bhirasakter Adarena Haniye Yadi Rachita Dhyam Avidyaloko Pavitham Japati Naganaye Tatvat Paranugrahena. Synonyms, translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Rudra Uvacha, Lord Shiva said, Tava, your, Varada, O Supreme Benefactor, Vara Angro, precious lotus feet, Ashisha, by desire, Iha, in the material world, Akhila Arte, for fulfillment, Hiapi, certainly, Munibhihi, by the sages, Asakte, liberated, Adarena, with care, Arhaniye, worshipable, Yadi, if, Rachita Thiyam, mind fixed, me, me. Avidya lokaha, the ignorant persons. Apavidham, unpurified activity. Japati utters. Naganaye, do not value. Tat, it. Tvatpara anugrahena, by compassion like yours. Translation, Lord Shiva said, My dear Lord, my mind and consciousness are always fixed on your lotus feet, which, as the source of all benediction and the fulfillment of all desires, are worshipped by all liberated great sages, because your lotus feet are worthy of worship. With my mind fixed on your lotus feet, I am no longer disturbed by persons who blaspheme me, claiming that my activities are not purified. I do not mind their accusations, and I excuse them out of compassion, just as you exhibit compassion toward all living entities. Purport. Lord Shiva expressed herein his regret at having been angry and having disturbed the sacrificial activities of Daksha. King Daksha had insulted him in many ways, and thus he had become angry and had frustrated the entire sacrificial ceremony. Later, when he was pleased, the yagna performances were reinstituted, and therefore he regretted his activities. Now he says that because his mind is fixed on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Vishnu, he is no longer disturbed by the ordinary critics of his way of life. From this statement by Lord Shiva, it is understood that as long as one is on the material platform, one is affected by the three modes of material nature. As soon as one is in Krishna consciousness, however, one is no longer affected by such material activities. One should therefore always be fixed in Krishna consciousness, busy in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. It is guaranteed that such a devotee will never be affected by the actions of and reactions of the three modes of material nature. This fact is also corroborated in Bhagavad Gita. Anyone who is fixed in the transcendental service of the Lord has surpassed all the material qualities and is situated in the status of Brahman realization, in which one is not afflicted by hankering for material objects. The recommendation of the Srimad Bhagavatam is that one should always be Krishna conscious and should never forget his transcendental relationship with the Lord. This program has to be followed strictly by everyone. From the statement of Lord Shiva, it is understood that he was always in Krishna consciousness and thus he remained free from material affliction. The only remedy, therefore, is to continue Krishna consciousness rigidly in order to get out of the contamination of the material modes. Okay, we will start with the Mangalacharan prayers to invoke auspiciousness. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद, श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय, ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय, ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Hare Krishna. Again, thank you everyone for joining and giving me this opportunity to speak something on this topic of Srimad Bhagavatam today. Even though I'm not qualified to speak on such transcendental subject matter, but just for the pleasure of my Guru Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada and all the Vaishnavas, I will try to serve by repeating what I have heard in our disciplic succession. And these two verses that we just read, the 28 and 29, they are deeply profound on their own. And the purport that Srila Prabhupada has written, it provides all the necessary context, but still, we'll try to break this down further into and examine like the key points more scrutinizingly, so more carefully. And these topics that we have today in these verses, they can be talked about for years because there's just so much information, and we can just go on and on. And there's lots of practical ways to live in these two. It's describing the practical ways to live in this world. With these two verses. So again, we'll just try to hit the high, at a high level, just the quick points that we have from these verses. So just to recap a little, this is the section when demigods are offering the prayers to Lord Vishnu at Daksha's sacrifice. And this is when Lord Vishnu has appeared. And this was after the part where Sati had gave up her body, and then Lord Shiva got angry and he created this Virabhadra, which is a demon, and ordered that demon to kill Daksha and his soldiers. And then this demon, does all this, ruins the sacrifice, and he beheads Daksha. And then just a long story short here that, Brahma, then all the demigods go to Brahma. Brahma goes to Kailash to ask Lord Shiva to pardon Daksha. And then, Lord Shiva eventually is satisfied, and then Daksha gets the head of a goat. And then Daksha also understands his mistakes, and he prays to Lord Shiva, and, then the sacrifice starts. So now Lord Vishnu has arrived at the sacrifice, and everyone is present offering prayers. So all the demigods and everyone else that's present there, they're offering the prayers to Lord Vishnu. And these verses, verse 28, verses 28 and 29, 28 is spoken by the assembly members, and verse 29 is spoken by Lord Vishnu himself, or sorry, Lord Shiva himself. So from these two verses, they really teach the two important things to us. One is that the conditioned soul's miserable condition in the material existence. That's by text, verse 28. And then number two is the consciousness of the pure devotee who remains fixed despite criticism. So that is Lord Shiva from text or verse 29. So again, in verse 28, the assembly members are describing the miserable condition of material existence. And they compare this world to many horrible things. And we'll just discuss some of those things. So first thing that they wanted to discuss was this, they say this world is like a formidable fort of conditional existence where the time element, like a snake, is always looking for an opportunity to strike. So just thinking about this, we feel so complacent and happy in our own world and our own life. And we think that we have a very good home, we have a very good job, our family and kids are really good, we have good relationships with our friends, we have good health, but really, all these things, no one knows, when any disease can come, right? We had seen a couple, a few years ago that the case with Corona, no one anticipated this, but it still came. And we couldn't even control it for the first, couple months or maybe a year or a couple of years. So, when relationships can also change, right? We may have a great relationship today with our spouse, with our parents, with our family, friends, but we don't know when the parents are going to leave, this world and us for that sake. Even our kids, we don't know when they'll be, getting married and having their own life where we just then become a part of their life. We're not going to be their life like how we were, when they were just little kids. So our friends also, they can leave us, due to some, petty misunderstandings or some argument. So all these things, and if none of these things happen, let's say you still have a perfect, relationships and everything is still perfect, stays perfect, but we will still be separated by all of these things when death comes. Um, and we know that, no one in, in this world knows when the death will arrive. And this modern world really teaches us to just control things, but Srimad Bhagavatam reading Srimad Bhagavatam teaches us the truth that we really are not the controller. We just control very little. It teaches us humility. So by understanding what our purpose is and to take the shelter of the Supreme Lord in this shelterless world. Um, so that's very important to understand that, we need to we are not the controller of anything. We may think everything is going great today, but in, matter of seconds or minutes or days, or, whatever years time factor, all this can be taken away from us. And then second, the assembly members describe this happiness in this world is like a mirage. So it's like this, this I was looking at or finding like a picture of this donkey. So, it's that some master ties this rope and then this carrot in front of the donkey, and this donkey keeps running, thinking that it will get the carrot. But it'll keep on running and running and running, never really getting the carrot, right? So this is how our life and our, most of the people, we all think this, that if I get this promotion, then I'll be happy. If I buy this house, then I'll be happy. If I get this done in my house, then it'll be good and I'll be happy. If I have, if this relationship becomes perfect, then I'll be happy. So, but when we really understand this, so let's say we even receive or somewhat of these things, right? In some portion. But even when we receive this, you'll realize that either you didn't want it, it wasn't the way you had planned for it, or um, it is something that, something else comes up, right? So your desire for this one is fulfilled, so now you want another thing. So it's like never ending. It's just constant, hankering for different things of this material world. So we see this even in the case of Dhruva Maharaj, right? Which will, again, I think it's coming up in the next two chapters, how he wanted this kingdom that's greater than his great grandfather, and because he was told by his stepmother, Suruchi, that if you want to sit on your father's lap, then go. You need to be born out of my womb. So, of course, then Suniti tells his son to go to the forest and attain Lord Vishnu, to get this kingdom, right? But then after he does all this tapasya, he realizes that when Lord Vishnu appears, he realizes that he was, asking for broken glasses, pieces of broken glasses. So this is something that we also feel. We feel that we want something, and then when we get it, we're like, oh my gosh, I did not want this, So we always have to be, when they say, be careful what you ask for. So that is something that I was pondering upon, and also, of course, being a devotee, we know that we should ask for the transcendental, devotional service unto the lotus feet, and of course, culminating that into the prema of Krishna. So that is something that we're all hankering for, and that is okay to hanker for. And then I was hearing this lecture by His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj, and they said, he said that this material happiness is just the absence of the misery or the distress. So that reminded me of, because it says in this verse here that material happiness is like this mirage. So we think it's there, but really it's not there. So again, it's just the absence of the distress. Next thing that the assembly members have described this world as, or the material condition is as shokadave, which means forest fire. So just like the forest fire, our sufferings of any kind of disease, any financial difficulty, even loss of loved one, any kind of family conflicts, all of these things appear really unexpectedly. And they also say this that the foolish persons live in the cycle of birth and death, always overburdened in discharging their so-called duties, and we do not know when they will accept the shelter of your lotus feet. Sorry, I just got a cough. Sorry. So again, this is showing the compassion for the conditioned souls from the assembly members. So, we also are so engaged in our material responsibilities that, after reading these texts, it should really give us some message of what we should prioritize in. And Srila Prabhupada writes that all these precarious conditions in here, um, all these conditions are really due to forgetfulness of Krishna. And our movement is meant to give relief to all of these distressed people who feels these conditions. So when we chant the holy names of the Lord, it is really cleansing of the mirror of the heart, as we hear, right? Cheto darpana marjanam. So by gradual cleansing of this mirror of the heart, we can see our true identity of the servant of a servant of the servant and understand our purpose versus trying to lord it over the material nature. And then text 29, this is where Lord Shiva is praying to Lord Vishnu. And this really, reveals his deep humility. Lord Shiva could have easily just justified his anger, but instead he really says he's regretting his anger and how he was able to forgive the offense. And he says that with my mind fixed on your lotus feet, I am no longer disturbed by persons who blaspheme me, claiming that my activities are not purified. I do not mind their accusations, and I excuse them out of compassion, just as you exhibit compassion toward all living entities. So, so this is the spiritual strength. Practically, how we can understand this is when we ask ourselves, right? The question we keep on asking ourselves is, how can I stop feeling or disturbed? But the real question should be, what am I attached to? Why am I feeling disturbed? Because that's when we will understand that, if you ask yourself anytime that you're disturbed, why you're feeling disturbed, you will see that it's not only because of this external causes or external factors, but really deep down, I may be attached to some praise or some prestige or some recognition, and I didn't get that, which is causing me to feel distressed. Um, and this means that our ego somewhere has gotten hurt, right? And we're either feeling that we are the doers of something and we didn't receive something in return because we think we did it. And when the recognition doesn't come or the appreciation doesn't come, then we feel disturbed. So when someone insults me, I feel disturbed. And this way, I was hearing a couple of things from like a while ago from His Grace Amoglila Prabhu, his lecture, which really, helps me at least try to separate. And he says, try to separate the ego and the mind from me, which means that, when someone is insulting us, try to talk to yourself and say, my ego is disturbed today. When someone hurts us or when someone doesn't speak pleasing words, say, my mind is disturbed. So this way, slowly, you're training to know that you are not your ego or your mind or your body, and we can disassociate ourselves from our false ego and our mind. And when we do this, it really relieves this big burden that we have and we carry in our heart by all this distress that we feel. So we should, always say he had said this in one of the classes, Mato Krishna Kahu. So anytime something happens, you just say Mato Krishna Kahu. Means that I belong to Krishna. And when we have this consciousness, then we become more absorbed in Krishna. And this way, less power has, any criticism uh, that comes our way. It has less power to disturb us. So in Bhagavad Gita 14.26, it also it refers to this verse here that Mam chayo vyapicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatiti tan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. So so the translation is one who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature, and thus comes to the level of Brahman. So as long as we identify ourselves on the material platform and with the material platform and material relationships, then we become disturbed. But when we are fixed in devotional service, then we transcend all these different modes of material nature and we can be fixed in devotional service. So now I finally we should understand that only the lotus feet of Krishna is the shelter, because everything else is temporary. And the true compassion means to really help others also to remember Krishna, because we learn from these verses that all these circumstantial and precarious conditions are due to forgetfulness of Krishna. And we know all the people, we as as anyone else in the world, we're all suffering from these things constantly. So when we can try to help remember Krishna to people, that's showing our real care and real compassion for the people in general. So I would like to conclude with the with Srila Prabhupada's statement that he says, always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. So this simple principle can transform the dangerous forest of material existence into a pathway back home, back to Godhead. So I can end here. Thank you so much for again being here, and please forgive me for any mistakes I may have committed. And if there are any corrections, discussions, reflections, we can discuss those now.
Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Prabhupada. A very practical class, application oriented. So this is not a question, but just a sharing. you know, first is like you said, though that desire to receive, um, you know, recognition and this and that. I think the first step, like you said, would be just to even recognize that that's there in me. But recently, I had one experience where after the recognition, um, just offering a prayer, we may not be able to act on it immediately, but every single time we notice it, just offering a prayer to Krishna, Guru and Krishna, that, I see this, uh, undesirable quality in me. And, I am helpless to remove it out of
Yeah.
my own accord. And yeah, the reason I'm sharing is because this memory is just so vivid. It was quite recent where I could immediately see Guru and Krishna's reciprocation, and it
Yeah.
was, and it's not that it has not happened before, but because of the dull brain and the dull consciousness, I tend to forget it.
Yeah.
Uh, but
Yeah.
yeah, Guru and Krishna are there. They're constantly supporting and guiding, and they're
Yes.
we don't recognize that they see us. Ultimately, it is that broken relationship that needs to be mended. So they are looking at us, they recognize us. And so anyway, that was just my sharing that, whenever there is a pitfall, we offer it as a prayer. And then Guru and Krishna take over from there. Thank you.
That is very true. Thank you. Thank you so much for your reflection and sharing. That's very important. Something I also had heard is like when we hear any kind of recognition or something, deep down when we understand this is all by the teachings of Srila Prabhupada, from Guru Maharaj, from our Shiksha Gurus. Everything is nothing is ours. We've learned all this. So when we have this kind of attitude, and we, transfer that, appreciation to our Guru Maharaj or our Siksha Gurus or, Srila Prabhupada, then, that it kind of helps us not feel that we, you know, deserved or we did, we had received this praise or prestige or anything. So that's one of the things that I also have had heard. So I think that that would also help when we receive any kind of recognition to transfer that and give that credit to our Shiksha Gurus and Diksha Guru. Thank you for sharing, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare
Good
Krishna.
to hear your lecture mainly on this early morning of Dwadasi day after the fasting and stuff. We will be so much into this meditation mode. And when I hear Mataji saying she's still contemplating on what happened and how to correct that one, actually that is very, very important. Once you share the feeling and this
Yes.
happened, we feel a less pressure also.
Yeah, you feel light when sharing.
Sometimes we ignore and just move away with the same
Yes.
consciousness. That doesn't help at all.
That is very
You
true.
gave
Thank
so
you.
many examples, so many quotations from Bhagavad Gita and other places also, Mataji. Very nice class. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Okay, if nothing else, we can end our call today. Thank you everyone for joining. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna.